Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down the meta, what's happening over Japan, and how will it impact Taiwan. Today, we're looking how is meta really shaking up in the Sparking Surge format. Japan has had it for just over a week now, pre-releases for us this past weekend, so we're going to see how the City League metagame changed so much. Are some of the top placing archetypes still the same, or some of the newer decks like Pikachu actually making its splash to the format? Plus, some brand new cards got revealed, which will be out in our December or January set, which should be quite exciting. Some of them could definitely change the metagame quite a bit. Just want to say thank you so much for supporting my channel so much. The video on Friday, the support has absolutely blown me out the way. It's really nice to see that lots of people are thinking the same way. Plus, also want to say, I thought the Heavenly Kings format was happening yesterday. Actually, it's happening this Sunday, so I'm going to break that down next week. So without further ado, let's jump into the brand new cards. So we first of all see the Eevee EX, pretty much the poster EX of a new set, and with a really interesting ability, Rainbow DNA. Once you return, if you have any Pokemon EX in your hand that evolve from Eevee, you may put that card on its Eevee to evolve it. You can't use the ability during your first turn or the Pokemon that's put into play. It is quite nice because also now you can evolve, you can use your Sylveon EX, this new Flareon, and the upcoming Umbreon EX and evolve straight into your Eevee EX, which is pretty powerful. Plus, also means you can have like 8 Eevees in a deck, so 4 regular ones, one that can evolve on your first turn of the game, or the turn it's put into play if it's in the active spot, and now Eevee EX, which is pretty powerful. One thing I also like about Eevee EX, it's a lot more bulkier than regular Eevee. Also, it works with the likes of the Glass Trumpet. All of a sudden, now these new Terra style these Stellar EXs have these really interesting, unique energy costs. Now, all of a sudden, with the Glass Trumpet, you can energy excite right onto your Eevee EX instead of having the regular Eevee. You can actually evolve into these Pokemon much easier to actually energy acquirement and not use likes of Crispin or the Sparking Crystal. I think it's pretty powerful, and I really like this Eevee. Flareon EX is pretty strong. The first attack for a fire and colors is 130 damage, and search your deck for 2 basic energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon attach them to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck afterwards. Why I like this one, you're basically doing a 3-shot of most things in the format, but also having an energy acceleration. Like I mentioned before, that other Eevee as well, which can have the evolve on the first turn. This can be pretty powerful to energy accelerate to quite a lot of your Eevee style decks. The other attack does 280 damage and they can't attack next turn for 3 different energies, which is still pretty powerful. But I think the first attack is really strong for setting up your sort of your energy acceleration to your other Eevee style cards. They also have this new Larry's card. Everyone loves Larry, and it's a really interesting supporter. Discard your hand, search your deck for a Pokemon, a supporter card, a basic energy, reveal them, and put them into your hand. This is, I would say, much stronger if you're going second, if you're a much slower style deck, if you have not made that much hand. The only reason why is because you're using supporter for turn to get a supporter for next turn, and also your opponent can Iona you. So I think it's a little bit weaker. It's a unique effect, but it also guarantees you get a Pokemon and a basic energy. So in Charizard, you can get your Rotom, you can get your Fire Energy, and then you can get your Arvin for next turn. So there are some sort of things which I could see some play in, potentially some control in the early game if you're going to go through most of your hand. But overall, I think the guarantee of discarding your hand and getting supporter for next turn in a format with quite a lot of hand disruption is a little bit weak. Now let's actually see the City League metagame when, oh boy, it's changed quite a bit. Now, you might look here and go, oh, pretty colors in here. The format is a lot more diverse. One certain archetype has kind of overtaken Charizard to be the most second place deck right now, and that is Reg Drago. This I feel like is an absolute shocker because it didn't really gain anything new cards from Surging Sparks, really. But I think in the metagame, it's more well poised. Like I mentioned before, it's really powerful with having the Dragapult, the Kieran plays, kind of like slowing down these in stage 2 Pokemon like Charizard, Dragapult, and Gardevoir. You can see them there. They're rounding out the rest of the 50% of the metagame, falling down quite a bit. Charizard going down to 10.7, which is a huge decrease from normally it's about 15%. So that's definitely a big change. We're still seeing Raging Bot at the top. It didn't really gain anything new except that new Cryogon, which I think is pretty powerful, but also it's really fast, really aggressive. As we mentioned before, it's incredibly powerful with a big basic style tech. Another deck which has absolutely shocked me doing so well at 5.5% is Ancient Box. Yes, we did gain that new Koraidon, which I think is really, really strong for Ancient Box, but also you have 2 incredibly good aspects to choose from. You have the Secret Box, which makes you guarantee you get a couple cards, but also discard quite a lot of your Ancient cards, as well as also that new Perfect Mixer card, which can discard a ton of Ancient Pokemon from your deck. It can be very fast and can ramp up to do nearly 200 damage on your first turn of the game going second, which again is pretty scary. Some of the newer archetypes are kind of like bracing to our field, likes of the Cerulege and Aralon we have seen do well. We did see last week Aralon did do pretty well with the Luxray, similar to like the Talonflame, but this one is done really well with Dialga, and I think it's probably the best way to play Aralon. Cerulege has got quite a few new interesting techs, kind of taking the Palkia and Greninja play, which I am a huge fan of, which I'm really excited about talk about a little bit later on. But Lugia and Iron Thorns have definitely fallen a little bit from grace, not doing as well as I really thought about him. When we think about it, Lugia did pretty well at the Champions League, getting second place. And after that, it was basically a 10% deck. But now it's fallen down to a 4.4%. Similar, Iron Forge has gone down to 3.6. This is a huge decrease. We're seeing that Surging Sparks. It's not as popular right now. Not many people are opting to play likes of Lugia because they are pretty scared of the Iron Thorns. I think the likes of Raging Bolt is incredibly aggressive against Lugia decks and can really outpace them in especially early games. And Reg Drago as well is opting now to play a brand new card or kind of like returning card, Gudra, which I generally think is a good sort of meta call right now for Reg Drago. Plus, also, we've seen some fun other decks as well do pretty well, like Golden Go being 4.2. I really like Golden Go still doing well. It's basically a glorified big basic, but this can have a single prize board state until you have to evolve, which I think is really good. If we look at a bit of a bigger breaker down of the metagame, we can see here that some other decks are doing well. Roaring Moon, Clove, Palkia, Trapicos, they are still pretty powerful right now. We're not seeing the resurgence of how we're seeing how popular Palkia and Trapicos is in Art metagame, but Japan's one they're obviously a little bit more in depth. We haven't had these huge sort of tournaments released. I don't think we have a big sort of Champions League until December time. I think it's actually released the day after my birthday, which is quite cool. So we're actually going to see how the metagame really will evolve then. Will we see more Palkia and Trapicos really kind of break into the fray? And the rest of the metagame, we're not seeing again, not too much of a shabby one. I generally say we're seeing the B tier is a huge sort of combination, but you can see the highest potential is 3.6, the lowest is 2.3. So again, we're seeing sort of the meta game slowly change just a little bit with Reg Drago kind of like jumping up and Ancient Box as well. So we're seeing some sort of change, but the more powerful decks like Lugia and Iron Thorns definitely decrease in number. And that can really be seen in the top 6 sort of breakdown of archetypes. We can see here that Raging Volt, it's still there. It is in the active spot. It is not going to move from the #1 spot. It's like when Charizard was so powerful. I think Raging Bolt has been at the top spot for like nearly 4 weeks now, since pretty much the return of the Champions League. It's only swapped once because of Charizard. Charizard numbers have gone up, which is quite nice. We've seen control numbers also go up. Decks like Golden Go and Dragon Ball are now back in, which is still pretty powerful. But also Reg Drago, it's gone down just a little bit. We have seen more increase in Reg Drago. It kind of like fell off a little bit, but last couple of weeks, it's been up there and winning most of the events in the Champions League. Sorry, City Leagues. So right now, let's break down some of these top placing decks from the City Leagues, seeing if any of these new cards from 13 Sparks are really making a splash and impact in the metagame. First one, let's look at Raging Bolt. And honestly, not too much is really different about Raging Bolt, but there's a couple of interesting tech cards for Raging Bolt this tech. Number one is plays that brand new Coridon. One does 180 damage if you use if one of your ancient Pokemon attacked during the last turn. This, I think, is pretty powerful. It's definitely a little bit of a different from the Sandy Shocks and Slithering, which is definitely making a bit more of a splash in Raging Bolt right now. But I think in the late game, this is really powerful. A single prize Pokemon, which can do 180 damage, which can easily be powered up by a Cider plus energy attachment. This is pretty strong. Yes, it has the caveat that you have to attack with Raging Bolt beforehand, but normally you're going to be attacking Raging Bolt on the first turn, potentially get a 2-prizer, then you can like boss up like a Serendipity or a Luminion, get the big one-hit KO afterwards, which I think is really strong with this Coridon. We're also seeing quite a few new switching cards as well being played in this one. We're only playing one switch card, but some decks are opting to play 2 of them. This one is opting also to play Penny, which I think is really good, getting rid of one of the liabilities like Squawkabilly, like Serendipity, or sometimes even an Ogopon, which gets chucked in the active spot, chucked in there, because Stall is doing pretty well right now. So again, that's something I really liked about this deck. We are still seeing some sort of more copies of switching cards, but that's generally something which I could really see Raging Bolt kind of go into this one, really leaning in to these switching style effects. Another one is I want to talk a bit more about ancient style decks here. We'll look at Ancient Box itself. How is the deck actually changing? We can see here it plays that new Coridon, like I mentioned before, but also like so Great Tusk. And I think Great Tusk is an absolute incredible read to be played in the Ancient Boxes. Now, obviously, we were seeing Ancient Box do really, really well before the World sort of format, and we might go, Charlie, why are people playing Great Tusk now in the deck? Wouldn't the other Coridon be really strong? Could do 180 damage if you have a full bench. Well, that's when you go, well, you have the new Coridon, which can do 180 damage after every single attack, which is really strong. But the reason why Great Tusk, I think, is played in a lot of these decks is for a couple of reasons. One, the format is incredibly fast and incredibly aggressive. Decks like Raging Bolt, decks like Roaring Moon, sometimes even likes of Reg Drago, they're going through half their deck on their first turn of the game, even if they're going attacking or not, which is incredibly scary for certain archetypes. But great for Great Tusk, you can get that discard effect straight away early on and actually get rid of quite a lot of these key resources. And that's also, like I mentioned before, we're in a very fast format. Most decks are drawing through the deck very quickly. That's where Great Tusk is incredibly powerful. We're seeing that Secret Box is the best of aspect to play in this deck. Like I did mention before, that you got the Perfect Mixer, which can get guaranteed discard 5, whereas Secret Box, you can get the guaranteed discard 3 sort of cards to like find your guides, but also you can get Earthen Vessel, you can get your entry booster capture energy, you can get a supporter card. Also, those are potentially additional cards you can discard. You can use the Earthen Vessel to discard another sort of ancient Pokemon. So effectively, perfect mix of discards, 5 sort of ancient guaranteed ancient cards. But Secret Box could get up to like 8 sort of cards in the discard pile, which I think is a much better trade-off and also guarantees your supporter time every single turn. Also, like Petra and EX, it's a really good attack in the late game, doing like 300 damage if your opponent's taken, believe it is the 5 prize card, which is pretty powerful. Also guarantees a switching option to always have your Royal Moon in active spot and have that really good answer to control. Monkey Dory as well to actually move around some damage counters. Again, I really like this one. I do think that Ancient Box is in a really good spot right now and really goes into the big sort of a big basic style archetype with Ancient Beast Capture Energy having 200 HP Royal Moons. And the last sort of big sort of one, it's a big Royal Moon. And obviously it has gained the Latias EX, which I think is still really, really good, giving all your basic Pokemon free retreat, which is incredibly strong. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of this for this style deck. But we can see here some the other sort of new cards, which I think is really good, is Ancient Enhanced Hammer, getting rid of those pesky Mist Energies. If Lugia is doing pretty well right now, and Charizard is even tackling a Mist Energy, kind of removing that threat is really strong. We're seeing here heavy on the Pokemon Catcher, heavy on the draw sort of style with Judge and Tracking Shoes. I generally think Royal Moon is in a much better place in the Japanese meta, and hopefully that can translate into our meta game in the future. Now let's look at Charizard. And Charizard had a lot of talk on the town. I believe last week was like Azul saying, oh, you don't need Dusknoir, it takes up too much space. But this one here, still option to play Dusknoir, but they aren't playing Manaphy. Yes, you are very scared of Radiant Greninja or regular Greninja or any sort of Wellspring Mask Ogerpon doing lots of damage counters on us anyway. But on those decks, most of them do play the likes of Dusknoir, so it already guarantees the K of the Manaphy. So kind of it doesn't really remove the threat too much. But this one is playing that brand new A-Spec, the Precious Cargo. And we've seen this being played in a lot of decks, and we're going to talk about it quite a lot, because I think it is secretly one of the strongest cards from Surging Sparks. Pretty much guarantees you get search your deck, and you can put as many basic Pokemon you have in there. This is pretty much Battle VIP Pass, but completely better. Could be played any turn of the game. Think about when you're playing Charizard, and you get quite a few of your cards in your first turn of the game, or you may not get any sort of key sort of pieces. You get like one Charmander, one Pidgey, and also they get Dusknoir away, and you're pretty much losing the game. But having this one, you can easily search out between Arven on when you're going second. You can fill up your board state. You can get your guaranteed draw from Rotom. You can get the Forest Stone to attach to Rotom to get other sort of key pieces in the late style game. I just think this is so strong. This getting your whole board state is really powerful. We are seeing that Buddy Puffin has a little bit of a hit by reducing the amount you have in this one, but this is a guaranteed Buddy Puffin for all of your guys, which I think is much stronger in other Charizard style decks, and that's why I think this is probably the best sort of aspect to play in Charizard right now. We are seeing the likes of Unfair Stamp still see you play here, but we've had a lot of talks to the town right now in the metagame, talking that hand disruption isn't as strong right now, and generally, I would say that's absolutely true. Think about how much like Pidgeot decks, Antipathy, and all of these little key sort of cards as well, kind of like manipulating your opponent's hand size. So I think this is a really good sort of A-Spec. If you are thinking of an A-Spec for Charizard, perfect. The Precious Cargo, or potentially even like sort of Prime Catch, is probably the best way for Charizard right now. Another one is Reg Drago. I mentioned it a little bit before, but Reg Drago is having a huge resurgence right now. And there's some unique cards in this one. First one I talk about is the return of Goodra. Why do I think Goodra is actually played right now? Well, certain archetypes like Raging Bolt, it can slow them down completely, forcing them to potentially discard 5 or even 6 energy cards that actually guarantee the KO on Reg Drago, because you're warding it from Goodra, which I think is really strong. Also helps in the mirror match, and helps in so many other sort of single price decks like Ancient Box. You guarantee the 1-hit KO because you're warding them, so you have to have more energies and more Pokemon in the discard part to actually get these big 1-hit KOs. They have Energy Sticker. What I love Energy Switcher is you flip a coin, if heads, attach an energy to one of your bench Pokemon. This is really powerful. All of a sudden, if you use your Kirin plays or even your Garatinas, you have one less of Energy Switch you need to find, or Tilmas Ogerpon, or Energy Attachment. Guarantee Attachment is really strong, which I really like. Another one they also play is Latias EX. This one here, I think is the most unique style card here, because obviously you're like, well, Reg Drago is a V-Star, so it's not a basic Pokemon, but it also gives all your other guys a free retreat. If you're starting with a Squawkabilly or potentially an Ogerpon, or even a Antipathy or Radiant Charizard, giving them all free retreat, forcing you to not actually guarantee an energy attachment to this one, saving you an energy attachment for your Tilmas, Ogerpon, and Reg Drago is really strong. Another thing which I've definitely noticed a lot more for most Reg Drago decks is they aren't playing the likes of Scramble Switch. Scramble Switch, I feel like it's an absolute no-brainer for Reg Drago. If you're constantly using these Kirin plays or Garatinas, and you want to move your energies around that and not utilize or use most of your energy switches, I think Scramble Switch is an absolute amazing sort of card here, and it definitely works with your synergy with Energy Sticker. So hopefully we got to see that little change. Right now, in my Reg Drago, my Sparking Surge format, I am playing Scramble Switch because I think it is really, really strong. We're going to see obviously some of the top players in Japan at the Heavenly Kings tournament this weekend, if they will be taking it. There's also after LAIC in the new sort of format, will people be taking back in Scramble Switch? Now I want to talk about Golden Go, and I really like this. We obviously saw Golden Go do pretty well in Dortmund, getting a second place with Yella, and this one here is, I believe, a little bit different. It offers that brand new Gimmickle, which has 70 HP, which I think is really, really strong. It also plays that brand new Ace Spec, which I think is an absolute must for Golden Go. I generally obviously misread it first time, but kind of like guarantee getting one of every single energy card as an energy search is really strong. Go to the likes of trying to find your Iridas for your Earthen Vessels, you need to like 3 of these Earthen Vessels, or potentially even the letter card if one of you guys gets knocked out. Try and find all these sort of energies. This one here guarantees to get all your energies out from your deck pretty much, and they could bring them always back from an energy retrieval, night stretcher. It's also a superior energy retrieval as well, which I think is really, really strong. But this has an interesting partner, Dusknoir. A 202 line of Dusknoir helps Golden Go so much. It can remove some of these single prize archetypes, as well as also kind of like setting up some KOs. Because you do have to have like 5 energies and discard them to do 250 damage. Also, the Dusknoir can help you hit the numbers up to get the KOs on the Dragapults and get KOs on the Charizard. So I think that's really good. Also, you can do 4 energy discard plus a Dusknoir pop, and also Neo KO likes of these Dragapults, the Charizard, and Guardfire, which I think is a huge increase for the deck. Whereas this one is still very much simple where we're seeing Golden Go kind of go around, but I do think that Golden Go is in a well-placed metagame. Like I mentioned before, you can have pretty much a single prize board state until the turn 2, which is really, really scary against the Roaring Moons and Raging Bolts, which always like to go 2/2/2 and can really mess with their prize trade. Now let's look at control, and this one here does play one sort of new sort of card here, but hasn't really changed too much. I think Pressure's Cargo is a really good card for control, because you can get all of your Snorlax and Mimikyus out, which I think is really, really strong. Gets your Corso Master Ogerpon, and also your Rotom as well to draw effect cards in the late game. I think this is really powerful. Slows down the lights from potentially guarantee, oh, I'm not going to do really well. You only play a couple Nest Balls as well, so you don't really want to like utilize all of them in early game. This one here gets all of your Pokemon out, which I absolutely love. Also have the Comfy as well, which like each player gets to draw a couple cards, so this can be good just in the active spot, just drawing a few cards you might don't need to have, but also helps your opponent like deck out potentially, which can be very, very scary at certain times. I like how they're playing more copies of the Gravity Gemstone to like make sure the opponent has to cost even more energy to retreat. Plus, also have the Snorlax can be really, really devastating for most Pokemon to actually increase their retreat cost. Plus, also having the Calamity Wasteland as well. You have a ton of potentially. Even if you have a Klefki in the action spot, effectively it would have a 3 retreat cost with Gravity Gemstone attached to this one. It could be very, very scary for most decks to actually really utilize and kind of go around this one. Like I mentioned before, Control is in a really good spot right now. Most decks you see aren't really playing too many switching cards. Raging Ball is kind of adding like more pennies in their deck, and even a couple cards more switch cards. So trying to like get some additional more healing. Also guaranteeing like the help of a Snorlax matchup. And if Lugia is kind of like decreasing in numbers, Control is obviously going to take that spot. Now let's look at this Dragapult. And like I mentioned before, Dragapult and Iron Thorns were definitely up there as like they had both had 4 wins, but Dragapult had a high percentage in the deck. This one here plays Dragapult and Iron Thorns is 1. A 4/4/2 line of Dragapult and a 4 Iron Thorns. The more I look at this deck, the more I go, this is weird, but the more I actually think about it, I go, this surprisingly works. So this definitely focuses more on a Crispin style deck, and Crispin is incredibly powerful. I always thought it's just for Terra Pokemon, but it's energy accelerating to bet 2 energies, but one had a one of your Pokemon is so strong. And having Iron Force in the active spot slows down the Raging Bolts because they can't use their Tiamat Ogerpon. It slows down Lugia, which obviously Lugia's pretty much disappeared from the format right now. It slows down Charizard. It slows down so many cards, which I think is really, really strong. And having a 1/1 line of Farigiraf as well is really, really powerful. Because not only are you slowing down those Raging Bolts, but also concerned like of any Shimpowers going around there, any of these other sort of basic EX Pokemon, which can be really scary. And Dragapult as well with the Phantom Dive can mop up these depths of attacks. You're not ever going to get these big 1 or 2 shot sort of decks. This is like 2 or 3 shot. And having Dragapult as well, you can effectively just spread lots of damage on there, draw for your Cloaks, and all of a sudden you can just go, right, clear out a Dragapult, and I'm just taking 6 prizes all in one. It's really scary. It does play, see here, the Precious Cargo. So you can also get all of your Dreepies, your Iron Thorns, your Farigiraf, your Tatsugiri, your Radiant Alakazam. There are so many cool, unique things about this Dragapult Wolves deck, which I'm a huge excited one. You can guarantee you can play this deck right now. Could it, apart from the Ace Spec, could this actually see any sort of competitive play? Potentially. I really like how unique this is as an archetype, really capitalizing on the wall style effect here and how powerful Dragapult really is with the draw factor and spreading damage counters. This is a really fun deck and has really surprised me. One of the most unique decks which I've seen capitalize on a meta style I'm talking about. Now let's actually look at some of these new sword cards, and with quite a few new Pikachu decks. Pikachu did get 2 wins, and both of them are very unique. First one here is I'm looking at the one with Blissey, which a lot of people are thinking this is the best way to play Pikachu outside the likes of the Magneton Miraidon build. One thing I like about this one here, you can have Pikachu out there, Glass Trumpet attaches your energies to your Blisseys, then when you evolve in your Chanseys, then when you evolve into your Blisseys, use the Happy Switch, move around the energies to a Pikachu, get these big one-hit KOs, constantly turn after turn. You play the Gravity Mountain, so making sure that you can actually get the big one-hit KO on Charizard as well. Again, we're seeing the Precious Cargo here. Check out get all your Pokemon on the bench, and I think it's pretty powerful. I really like this one. You also played the one of the 151 Chansey. Potentially 50% of the time, you could get additional more prize card, which again is really strong. Now, I don't know if this is going to be the best guaranteed way to play Pikachu. Obviously, you're not going to be attacking with this until at least turn 2, because you're not playing any Energy Switch. You're only playing with likes of Blissey. But overall, I could generally see some sort of success. I really like the more the Miraidons are built here, but as you're going to be playing the Magneton, you're effectively giving your opponent 1 prize card. But again, like I mentioned before, we've seen how powerful Dusknoir is, but Dusknoir gets you a prize card as well. It's definitely a little bit of food to fall. Another one I will talk about is the Lost Zone box, and we're seeing Lost Zone box actually do quite well overall in the format right now. Obviously going really well in the Louisville Regional Championships, getting 2nd place, and it's had quite a bit of talk about it, but obviously Reg Drago, his numbers are increasing and more Kirums around here, more Dusknoirs, more Radiant Greninjas or regular Greninjas, it could definitely fall a little bit by the wayside. But what I like about this one, you have a way to actually attack with this one, even if you're going 2nd, with your choruses, with your Lost Vacuums, as well as for Comfy, so draw factors. And constantly streamline the Pikachus, because you get any attachment, 1 Mirage Cake, because you're already playing 2 different energy cards as well, so it works incredibly well for this one. And you're having a ton of Super Rods as well. I really, really, really like this version of Pikachu. You already got to play water energies, you're just adding grass and metal energies because you can still attack with your other strong attackers, like Radiant Greninja, like Iron Hands, like Bloody Luna. This one also played 1 copy of Trapagos, which it's pretty powerful because you actually can, all the energy cards you play, you can actually use its secondary effect, which is really, really strong. I really like how unique this Lost Zone deck is. I hope we're going to see more of this in innovation, but how scary Dusknoir, Radiant Greninja, and Kyurem have on these low HP Pokemon, I doubt this might continue the success. Another one is Archetypes. I mentioned it a little bit before, but Archetypes with Dialga makes a lot of sense. Obviously, if you don't know Aralon, when you evolve, you can attach 2 energies from a discard pile to one of your Pokemon. This is really, really strong. You can actually I forget if it's the Aralon or to your Pokemon itself, but again, attaching some energies from best one, and you can really power up your origin from Dialgas really quickly and hopefully get a Star Kronos turn 2, get a secondary attack option. Plus also Scramble Switch, you can move around your energies, which is really, really strong. Relicanths, you can attack with the regular Duraludon as well to additional more damage. There is just so many unique things and exciting stuff about Duraludon. I really like how this one, we're still seeing some new sort of decks kind of like break into the mold, and one of the best sort of style of new decks right now, which a lot of people have talked about for pretty much being in the metagame for quite a few weeks, is Ceruledge. Ceruledge is really powerful, 30 plus 20 more for each energies in your discard pile. This is really strong, and pretty much you're playing lots of Carmine, lots of Earthen Vessels, Squawkabilly, Radiant Greninja, Ultra Ball, get a ton of energy in discard pile, and eventually you can hit maybe 300 damage turn 2. But one thing that struggles is you're not actually going to be getting out this turn 2, and it could be really struggling against certain other decks. This is where I think Radiant Greninja and 1/1 line of Palkit is a really good inclusion for Ceruledge, because not only do you have your Palkit is a really good secondary attacking option, but also you have Radiant Greninja. Again, we have a lot of decks which play Dusknoir, a lot of decks that play we have the Charizards, we have the Dreepies, we have the Gardevoir. So having this Radiant Greninja slowing down that sort of style on the opponent's side is really, really terrifying. Also, you can have a single prize Pokemon. Heck, chuck a Legacy Energy on there, a 0 prize Pokemon out there in the active spot. That could be a huge threat to your opponent's side by putting out a ton of damage around there, which can be really, really scary. And that's something which I really like about Ceruledge. I think it's a really, really powerful deck. I don't know if it's going to be a hugely meta-defined deck, but definitely for rogue decks, it's incredibly strong. So, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Next week, we'll obviously look at the Heavenly Kings tournament. We'll see who the brand new the 4 new players to represent the Pokemon Trading Card game in Japan will be. The 4 best players in the game. We're having 8 players in Japan going to be competing. We're seeing whittling down to the final 4, which is really exciting. Will we see the meta change after this one? Obviously, after that one, we did see hugely how we're going to play the Charizard decks with the Toad Scroll, and we saw how powerful Shenpao really is. So that's going with this one. Our stage 2 Pokemon safe. Can we keep playing our Charizard if the numbers are just going to be decreasing with the likes of Raging Bolt and the likes of Reg Drago numbers increasing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Just want to say thank you again so much for support this past week. It truly has blown me away. I'm so grateful to every single one of you. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below, what do you think could do really well this weekend at the Heavenly Kings tournament? And I'll see you guys next week for another video. Bye for now.